Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, this is a channel about Dungeons and Dragons where we try and take a darker tone with everything we do here. So if you like edgier kind of content, definitely hit that like and subscribe button. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, the link is in the description. And finally, a big shout out to our good friends at Dice Legion. Use the promo code Sinister, get 10% off all of your purchases. It has dice bags, other ttrpg accessories, so if you need stuff for your IRL games, check them out. We are doing a very big push to try and hit 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We can't do that without you. So if you've been here before, if you like what you see, if you've enjoyed the content, definitely consider hitting that subscribe button. It means the world to us. Again, we cannot achieve this goal without you. With no further ado, we're going to jump into our first lore video. We're going to talk about goblinoids. In order to understand the goblinoids, you really have to understand their connection to their deity. They are devoutly connected to Magubliet. Magubliet is their chief deity, and how Magubliet rose to power was by eliminating the other deities in the goblinoid pantheon almost systematically, leaving only a select few in order to serve him. I think this is really telling, and I think it's very, very ingenious on Magubliet's part. If you look at, say, the Hobgoblin deities, and the deities that are left are Nomogaya and Bugbear. Nomogaya is the deity of war and authority. This is the Hobgoblin's chief deity. When they're not praying to Magubliet, they pray to Nomogaya. This deity is their stoic strength, confidence, leadership, everything that encompasses the ideal hobgoblin comes from Nomogaya. Nomogaya is a warrior, strong, a leader, authoritative, doesn't speak unless he needs to, is silent, won't even scream out in pain when wounded. He is strength incarnate to the Hobgoblin people. It's very important that the Hobgoblins maintain this authority. They are the leadership background of the goblinoid army. When the call of Magubliet is heard, it is up to the hobgoblins to round up the bugbears and the goblins and to organize them and to create the fighting force, this giant machine of war. That responsibility falls under the authority of the hobgoblin. The other deity from the hobgoblin pantheon that was left in servitude is Bugbear. This is the deity of slavery and tyranny. The hobgoblins are known to be vicious to those underneath. The goblins are treated horrifically, and they fear the lash of the hobgoblin. This evil aspect of what tyranny and authority can turn into, being inherent into the pantheon of the hobgoblins, creates the perfect tyrannical ruler. You have Magubliet, who sits above all, who is war and his rulership, and his will has to be obeyed. You have the epitome of what a hobgoblin should be, bowing to Magubliet. And then you have the god of slavery and tyranny, forcing your actions and how you treat the other goblinoids and the other monsters and everything else that exists in the world around you. This forms the hobgoblins to be what they are. Their whole religion is based around these aspects. It's very telling why Magubliet let them live and why they serve him. It changes everything from the hobgoblin's perspective. In the bugbear pantheon, the same thing happened. Magubliet ran out and killed all the remaining gods in their pantheon outside of three. One of them is Rorgek. That is, or was, the chief bugbear deity. His portfolios are war and violence. You can start to see really what Magoobliet was doing by having their chief and most powerful deity being war and violence creates this devastating, aggressive nature to the bugbear. Now, bugbears are known to being kind of lazy and aloof, but that's really because they're not in circumstances where it's time for them to fight. The other two bugbear deities that were left is Grankul, who is the deity of hunting, senses, stealth, and surprise, and Skigaret. Skigaret is a bugbear deity of fear and is insane. Skigaret is really a good notion as to how, and with Grankul, create how the bugbears fight. They use stealth, they use surprise, and they use fear. They jump out and scare people and attack them and disorient them with these kind of shock trooper type of actions, which really depicts what they are. They're meant to stealth into combat and run amok as a parent in their species abilities and their base abilities. But this is what Magoobliet did. And he did the same things to the goblins. He took these pantheons and eliminated all the good things from it, erased all history of who these gods are and where they come from and what their lives were before Magoobliet, and left the violent, the evil, the dangerous deities to shape the lives of the goblinoids. Their history, like all the other species in D&D, are so closely intertwined with their religion because their gods are always apparent. They're always telling them, whispering in their ears and showing them things to do and things to accomplish and guiding them. Magoobliet has created an entire species into a force of just violence and war. The real question is why? Why would Magoobliet go all this way to kill out other gods in his own pantheon in order to turn the species into what they are? And a big reason why is because of where Magoobliet lives. Magoobliet lives in the divine realm of Archeron, which is a lawful evil battleground. It is just straight war constantly with other deities and powerful deities all vying for control of this area. So whenever hobgoblins, bugbears, and goblins all die, they all get brought back into this war zone, primed and ready to fight. I don't think it's Magoobliet's purpose to have the goblins win anything or build a perfect civilization. I think that's why whenever the goblinoids are being stationary too long, they drop everything and go to war. They abandon their homes and go to war. They do this because they're not meant to really survive. They're meant to fight and become the most viable soldiers possible to help Magoobliet's war. Magoobliet is not a good god by any means. And I don't think he really even cares about his people and his worshippers. He's got such a hold on them that they don't even know what their lives are like before Magoobliet killed the other deities. So he creates this incredible army to fight in the divine wars on his behalf. Because if Magoobliet was ever to win any of these wars and take over for another deity and assume those worshippers, his power would grow and be incredibly dangerous. One of the most evil entities in the entire D&D history is the deity Bane. Bane is, you can go forever. He's the main reason behind a lot of horrible things that have happened on the divine scale. And a fantastic entity to just really do some research on. But to be one of the greatest god-level villains in the entire D&D history, and to choose Magoobliet to be one of your lieutenants and be your exarch and carry your will out says a lot of the danger and the severity of the oppression that Magoobliet can bring out. In a lot of ways, I feel like Magoobliet has held the goblinoids hostage. And I think the best representation of this is in Kikanuti, which is a desert goblinoid deity of fertility. This deity is neutral good, and she's worshipped by a kind of offshoot of goblins that specifically live in the desert. The important thing to note about Kikanuti is her relationship to Magoobliet. Magoobliet covets her divine portfolio of fertility. And if that sounds strange, it really should. For a war and tyrannical kind of deity to want to be a deity of fertility is really unusual until you put that in perspective of what Magoobliet has done this whole time. If Magoobliet was to gain that domain portfolio, means he could produce significantly more goblinoids at such a faster rate by always answering those prayers. In which case goblins would produce in mass numbers and grow exponentially. And then you see how dangerous that is. For have legions upon legions upon legions upon legions of goblinoids anywhere is bad news. But the fact that Kakanuti exists is very telling of what could be, or maybe what has happened. And the reason why I say this is because as the hobgoblins and the goblins have existed, and now they're evolving, and with the latest books, they've shown that they have Fey ancestry. And now that we know Kakanuti exists, we know they had good deities as well. Hobgoblins with their Fey ancestry and goblins with their Fey ancestry dictates that bugbears must as well come from the Feywild. There's no history of any of the deities that were killed by Magoobliet. Their names have been eradicated. No one knows them. No one knows anything about their rituals, their lives, how goblins used to live, their day-to-day social things, because it's all become war. The hobgoblins train everything. Whenever you're born as a hobgoblin in their society, they watch you. They as soon as you can walk, you're trained to fight. If you show any kind of magical ability, they send you off to their school, their wizard school, where they train you how to use evocation magic. If you're good at building something, you are given credit because what you build is best for the society. You can be a carpenter, and if you make great, fantastic structures efficiently and quickly, you're given positions of power. You're rewarded for whatever you do in goblinoid society because they take that and they don't stay stationary for long. So they need that moving. So they reward that to keep that growing. If you're a goblin, you are almost as chaotic as possible, but you follow a very strange set of laws. You're reckless. You're violent, you're subjugated constantly, and you're forced into acting this way. All because when it comes down to times of war, you get sent out first. You're there just as cannon fodder. You're there to run in, to charge, to take all the arrows first, so that way everyone else can run in. So your lives are dictated to be that way. And you've lost joy and celebration and song and great stories of legends and comedies and plays, because if you had that, you as a goblin would have something to live for beyond your purpose. Bugbears are trained to just jump in, cause chaos, and damage everything in sight. They are meant to be violent instruments that explode on the battlefield. But they've all been the victim of Magoobliet. They've all lost the ability to be joyous and to have all these other great things in their lives. They only know war because no other gods in history exists for them. Now, this is just my theory, that deep down, Magoobliet is an example of what happens when evil wins in a divine realm. There's no way that the other goblins didn't fight them, the other goblin deities didn't fight back and try and survive. But Magoobliet created his perfect army. And in doing so, tyrannically erased all the ideas and theories and beliefs and lifestyles of all the good deities in the goblins' lives. And with that all gone, they don't know how to not be evil and not be this evil force that exists in D&D. Because there is no option for them. There is no change. Even the drow have their own good aligned deity that a lot of the male drow go to serve when they don't want to serve Lolth and just have a chance at a normal life. And the goblins don't have that. And in the world of Dungeons and Dragons, you do have to kind of follow a deity. Otherwise, you don't go anywhere in the afterlife. When you follow a deity, when you die, you go to that deity's realm and you live that deity's domain, whatever it may be. Which is why Magoobliet has kept such a war-focused lifestyle, because again, Archeron is a giant square metal battlefield. It is just an endless war of people vying for power and domain over it. But I do think the goblins are all victims here. And I think with the note of Fey influence and that coming to the forefront, I think you can see a change in what they'll do or what they'll become. Because if they actually really banded together and really fought for their own place, I think they could conquer their own territory and their own land and create their own goblinoid kingdom the way it should be, as opposed to them just being sparse and just separated and just all over the continent. Because even when the hobgoblins take over an area and they're the most organized and strategic of all of them, they don't build farms, they don't farm lands, they don't raise cattle. They go to an area, consume everything, forge all their weapons, pack up, and move to the next one. And they have to, because if they don't, they're not following the will of Magoobliet. And that's a prison. And I think that's why all the goblinoids are really trapped. Hobgoblins are my favorite species. I love them so much, and a lot of what we discussed today is a real big foundation as to why they're these tragic heroes who are fighting and believing wholeheartedly in the only thing they've ever known, and what they've known was wrong. I really sympathize with that. It really resonates something deep in me, and I love them so much for it. That being said, again, we're going to bring this video to a close. It was our first lore video, so if you liked it, there's pointers, tips, things you would like to see more of, definitely let us know. A big thank you if you've made it this far into the video. Definitely hit that like and subscribe button. We're doing a huge push to hit 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We cannot do it without you. Big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Check out our good friends at Dice Legion. Use the promo code Sinister. Get 10% off all of your purchases. And thank you so much for giving a Spooky Kid a chance.